Okay, so let's unpack a scenario that I think every single gamer has faced. And it might honestly be the most heartbreaking moment in RPGs.
Uh-huh.
You've spent weeks, maybe months, building the ultimate pyromancer. You've got the gear, the robes that boost fire damage, the staff of infinite burning.
Oh,
You are a walking inferno.
I know exactly where this is going. You walk through the fog gate, you're hyped.
I walk through that fog gate ready to just burn everything to the ground, and I see the boss, and my heart just sinks. It's the fire elemental.
Of course.
A giant being made of the very thing I specialize in. But, I try anyway. I cast my biggest, baddest fireball. It hits dead center, and floating above its head is that one word that just kills your soul.
Immune.
Immune. 0 damage. It's a hard stop. The game basically looks at your character sheet and just says, nope, you don't get to play today.
And you're just stuck there.
You're just stuck maybe wanting for 2 physical damage, waiting for the rest of the team to handle it. It is so boring.
It's worse than boring. It's bad design. It's a binary switch, on or off, a wall. But that frustration you're describing, that is the exact starting point for the research we're looking at today.
Right.
We have a stack of design docs here, and they're all proposing this radical shift. They ask a simple question: what if that immunity wasn't a wall? What if it was a fuel tank?
See, that's the pivot that grabbed me. We're diving into a concept they call reactive damage mechanics.
We are.
And the source material basically argues that we've been designing boss fights, well, wrong for the last 20 years.
It is a complete philosophical shift. The mission of this deep dive is to explore how we can move away from those static resist stats and toward, dynamic systems.
Okay.
We're talking about enemies that don't just block your attacks, but absorb them to change the nature of the fight. It's about turning the boss into a living puzzle.
Not just a damage sponge that you poke until it falls over. And we're going to cover how this turns enemy strengths into tactical tools. We'll break down this incredible risk-reward gameplay loop.
Yeah.
And my personal favorite, we're going to talk about how this applies to guys with swords, not just wizards.
Oh, yeah.
There's a concept in here about punching a wall until it gets cocky that is genuinely hilarious and brilliant.
It's a fascinating application of psychology applied to AI code. It changes the entire relationship between you and the enemy.
So let's jump right in. Section 1. Flipping the script on immunity. The source describes this core mechanic where you don't subtract HP. You add energy. Help us visualize this. How does the math actually change?
Right. So in a traditional RPG, the math is simple subtraction. You have an attack, the boss has a defense, and if the elements match, the result is 0.
Simple enough.
But in this reactive system, the game logic changes to element match equals absorption.
So my fireball actually registers. It's not just bouncing off into nothing.
It registers, but not as damage. Let's say your fireball deals 100 points of damage. Instead of taking 100 health from the boss's internal state absorbs 100 energy.
I'm feeding it.
You are feeding the creature. You are giving it exactly what it wants.
Okay, but from a player experience standpoint, how do I know that? Because if I see immune floating in text, I've been trained for decades to just stop casting that spell.
And that's the crucial part. The source emphasizes that hidden numbers are the enemy here. The feedback has to be visceral.
What do you mean?
If you hit a fire elemental with fire, the mob shouldn't just stand there. It should glow brighter. The model should physically expand. The sound design should shift from a thud to a deep, resonant, intake of breath.
Oh, so it's like overinflating a balloon. You can literally see the pressure building.
Precisely. It is telling you, I am eating this and I am getting stronger. It's visual language that screams charge instead of block.
Which, logically sounds like a terrible idea. Why would I ever want to make the boss stronger? If I'm the raid leader, I'm screaming at my mage to stop casting right. Stop healing the boss.
In a normal game, yes. But here, you're driving toward what the docs call the threshold explosion. This is the mechanic that anchors the entire system. Think of that balloon analogy again. You can only pump so much air or fire energy into it before physics takes over.
It has to burst.
It has to burst. Once that absorption meter hits a certain limit, let's say 500 energy, the mob triggers a massive area of effect, or AoE explosion.
Okay, hold on. Usually in MMOs, an explosion is a bad thing. That sounds like I just wiped my team. Congratulations, you blew us all up.
It certainly can be a wipe if you aren't expecting it. But here's the payoff. That burst resets the absorption meter. And more importantly, the explosion is neutral damage. It hits everything in the room.
Everything.
everything. The source mentions that high-level players might intentionally feed the boss to trigger that explosion at a very specific moment.
Wait, so I'm weaponizing the boss against itself? Or its own minions?
Exactly. Imagine a scenario where the main boss is surrounded by 20 smaller minions, what gamers call ads.
Right, the little guys swarming your healer.
They're swarming your healer, you can't kill them all quickly enough, you're overwhelmed, the tank is struggling.
So a fair mage looks at the boss, who is immune to fire, and says, you know what? I'm going to use you as a bomb.
Precisely. The mage pumps the boss full of energy, triggers that threshold, and the boss explodes outwards, incinerating all the smaller minions instantly.
You've turned the boss's greatest strength into a room-clearing tactical nuke.
You have.
That is so much cooler than just immune. It completely changes your mindset from, I am useless here, to, I am the trigger man.
It really does. It transforms the immunity from a stop sign into a detour, and that leads us directly into the gameplay loop, because now you aren't just mindlessly clicking buttons.
You're managing a volatile resource?
You're managing a nuclear reactor that could melt down at any second.
All right, let's get into section 2, this feed or chip decision loop. Because the source makes it clear that you don't have to blow them up. You have choices.
Yes, there are a few distinct options.
Let's start with option A, chip away.
This is your safe option. This is for the team that wants a controlled, predictable fight. You use non-elemental attacks. Maybe you have a rogue just stabbing it with a dagger, or you use arcane missiles that don't carry a charge.
And that works. It does damage.
It works. It subtracts HP. But because you aren't engaging with the boss's core mechanic, it is very slow. It's the low-risk, low-reward path.
It's the we just want to get the loot and go home strategy.
Yeah.
Safe, but it drags on. Then you have option B, which is what we just talked about, overfeed.
High risk, high reward. You blast it with the very thing it loves. You fill that meter up as fast as possible.
The danger is timing.
The danger is all timing. If you trigger that explosion when your healer is stunned or when your tank is out of position,
Everyone dies.
it's an instant wipe. But if you time it right, you might deal massive damage to the boss itself, like overpressure damage, or clear the entire board of enemies. It speeds up the fight dramatically.
But you are walking a tightrope.
A very thin one.
And then there's option C, which I found really fascinating. It feels like a chemistry class. Combined elements.
This is where the design gets really complex and interesting. The source suggests that different elements could interact inside the boss.
How so?
So you're feeding it fire to make it unstable, right? It's heating up. But what if your teammate hits it with ice at the same time?
Thermal shock.
Exactly. You aren't just feeding it, you're destabilizing it. The source describes this as keeping the boss brittle.
So what does that do?
Maybe mixing elements prevents the explosion, but applies a massive defense debuff, making the boss take way more damage from physical attacks. You're mixing a cocktail of volatility.
I love the idea of emergent team play here. Because usually, let's be honest, the healer's just watching health bars. They're playing whack-a-mole with green gars.
Right. And the tank is just watching the boss's feet.
But in this system, everyone has to watch the glow.
It creates what the source calls controlled chaos. The healer needs to constantly assess the situation. They have to think, okay, the mage is going crazy, that boss is glowing bright orange, a burst is coming in 3 seconds. I need to precast my shields right now.
And the tank has to reposition.
The tank needs to realize the explosion is imminent. I need to rotate the boss 180 degrees so the blast cone hits the enemies, not my party.
It sounds like it requires actual communication. You can't just be on autopilot watching Netflix on your second monitor.
It demands presence.
Yeah.
You have to look at the game world, not just the UI. And the boss isn't static either.
Right. You mentioned the dynamic phases.
Yeah, it's not just a meter filling up. The behavior changes. You have the normal phase, business as usual, but as you feed it, it enters the overcharged phase.
And what does that look like? Is he just glowing, or is he actually acting differently?
Oh, the behavior becomes erratic. The boss becomes unstable. It might move 20% faster. Its swing timer decreases, so it attacks harder and faster.
It's vibrating with energy.
It really is. The tension in the room just skyrockets.
Right.
You are effectively making the fight harder for yourself in the short term.
You're ramping up the difficulty intentionally to get to the payoff.
Yeah.
That's such a gamble.
Yes. You endure the overcharged phase to trigger the explosion phase, which acts as a release valve. The overload happens, the damage goes out, and then, crucially, the boss might enter a burnout state.
Like a sugar crash.
Exactly like a sugar crash. The energy is gone. Maybe it leaves the boss stunned and vulnerable for 10 seconds. That's your window.
That's when you pour on the dance.
That's your window to punish. So the loop becomes feed it, Survive the rage, trigger the boom, punish the burnout.
It forces the player to engage with that risk-reward calculation constantly. It's brilliant.
It is, but I think we need to address the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
This all works great for Magic. It's easy to visualize. But the source material argues this applies to physical combat too. And this is where the design philosophy really, really shines.
Yes, this is my favorite part of the notes. Section 3. The cocky boss.
It's a great term, isn't it?
The source describes this as punching a wall until it makes a mistake. I think we've all fought that boss. Usually a guy in giant heavy armor with a massive shield.
Oh, yeah. You hit him, and it sounds like hitting a frying pan. Clang, clang. No damage.
And normally you just keep hitting him until his health bar arbitrarily goes down. It makes no sense. Why does hitting his shield hurt the guy holding it?
It doesn't.
So explain how you translate fire absorption into getting punched in the face. How does a knight absorb a sword strike in this system?
Well, think about the psychology of a fight. If you are a giant armored juggernaut, a physical wall, and a tiny adventurer is just punching your shield.
You don't take physical damage.
No. But you do react emotionally.
You get confident.
You get arrogant. So instead of a fire energy bar, the slump proposes a hidden confidence bar.
I love it.
Every time you hit his shield, every time he effortlessly blocks you, he gains confidence. He thinks, these guys are pathetic and they can't hurt me.
So he absorbs your physical attacks and converts them into ego.
Precisely. And just like the fire elemental, there is a threshold. When that confidence meter fills up, the boss doesn't explode in fire. He explodes behaviorally. He backfires.
The mistake.
The mistake. He becomes too confident. The AI triggers a specific animation. Maybe he tries a massive show-off swing that takes way too long to wind up.
Or he laughs at you.
He laughs and drops his guard to taunt you. Or he overextends on a lunge and exposes a weak point. The source mentions cracks forming in his defense.
That is such a human way to interpret combat. So the strategy becomes, do I poke the bear? Do I keep annoying him to inflate his ego so he screws up?
It adds so much personality to the encounter. You aren't just fighting a health bar, you're fighting a character. The source contrasts different personality types to make this work.
Go on.
Imagine the confident tank who gets sloppy when you hit him versus the paranoid one.
Oh, I love the idea of a paranoid boss. How would that work?
Well, you just reverse the polarity. If you attack the paranoid one too much, he turtles up, he hides behind a shield, you can't hurt him.
Okay.
But if you stop attacking...
The silence freaks him out.
Exactly. If you stop attacking, his anxiety bar fills up. He thinks, where are they? What are they planning? And he peeks out from behind the shield.
And that's your moment to strike.
That's your moment.
That is incredible. It creates a psychological loop. Players have to decide, do I keep punching to make him cocky? Or do I wait and bait him out?
It's the same mechanic as the fire mage input leads to reaction, leads to vulnerability, but flavored completely differently.
It really solves that problem of just hitting a guy with a sword 500 times until he falls over. Yeah. It makes the combat feel like a dialogue.
A dialogue is a perfect way to put it. You do X, he feels Y, and reacts with Z.
Which leads us to the broader critique the source makes about current MMOs and RPGs. Section 4 calls out the rotation simulator.
Yeah, let's talk about that. The source is pretty harsh on the classic style of fighting found in most big MMOs right now.
They did not hold back.
No, they didn't. Well, think about your standard MMO raid today. You stand in one spot, you press buttons 1, 2, 3, 4 in a specific order, a rote rotation.
That you practice on a dummy for hours.
For hours. You only move when a big red circle, a telegraphed marker, appears on the floor.
It's basically Simon Says, mixed with doing your taxes. Move left. Okay, now press 4.
It is passive consumption of content. You are reacting to a script that the developers wrote 6 months ago. But this new system, it's a living system.
Right.
Progress isn't just measured by HP going down. It is measured by energy state, by behavior, by confidence levels. The boss is responding to you in real time.
And the source specifically attacks what it calls the spreadsheet meta.
We've all seen this. You go online, you look up the best build on a wiki, and it's just a math equation. This build does 5% more DPS, so everyone must use it.
And if you don't use it, you get kicked from the group. It sucks the fun out of discovery.
It does. If I want to play a lightning mage, because I think lightning looks cool, but the spreadsheet says fire is 1% better, I feel like I'm playing the game wrong.
Yeah.
But in a reactive boss system, the spreadsheet meta breaks down. Because the encounter reacts differently to every build. There is no single best, because the boss changes based on what you bring.
Right. If I bring a fire mage to that elemental fight, I'm signing up for a volatile, explosive fight, high chaos, high speed.
Correct. But if you bring a Frost Mage, maybe the boss absorbs that cold. It doesn't explode, it freezes.
It gets sluggish.
It becomes slower, more stable. The fight takes longer, but it's much safer for the tank. It creates a completely different tempo.
And if I bring an all-physical team, I'm playing that psychological mind game with the cocky mechanics.
It creates genuine build diversity. It's not about which build does the most damage. It's about what kind of fight you want to have.
Do you want jazz improvisation or a classical symphony?
Exactly. Do you want things exploding and reacting on the fly? Or do you want to control the tempo with ice?
That is a huge point for replayability, too. Usually once you beat a boss, you know the script. At 50% health, he does the laser. But here, the boss doesn't have a script. He has reactions.
He's reacting to your specific actions. If you change your party, the boss fights differently. You cannot just look up a guide that says, stand here at 2 minutes.
Because at 2 minutes, a fire team might have triggered an explosion, while the physical team might have just baited a counterattack. The guide is useless.
It rewards observation. That's what the source argues is the healthy meta. You have to look at the screen, not the damage meter.
You have to look at the monster's face or its glow or its stance.
And that is a crucial shift. It asks players to be present, to adapt. It moves the skill ceiling from how well did you memorize your buttons to how well can you read and manipulate this creature.
It treats you like an intelligent participant, not just a button pusher.
It does.
It really does sound like a healthier, more engaging way to design games. So let's wrap this up. We're looking at a shift from immunity as a wall, that boring no-damage text, to immunity as a resource.
That is the core takeaway. By turning enemy strengths into fuel tanks, we unlock tactical depth, team coordination, and emergent storytelling.
We stop fighting spreadsheets and start fighting monsters again.
That's the goal. We move from passive pattern recognition to active system manipulation.
And frankly, it just sounds more fun to blow up a boss by overfeeding it than to chip away at its toes for 10 minutes.
Hard to argue with that. But I want to leave you with one final thought, connecting this back to the bigger picture.
Go for it.
We talked about the cocky wall, the idea that an enemy reacts to how we treat them, effectively giving them an emotional state.
Right.
If we push this design philosophy to its absolute limit, could we eventually see games where the most effective strategy isn't to fight at all?
What do you mean? Like a pacifist run?
But an active one. If the enemy reacts to aggression with confidence or rage, perhaps the ultimate high-skill play is to manipulate their emotional state entirely.
So, not to attack, but to posture, to confuse, to intimidate.
Exactly. If the boss is a living system reacting to input, could we reach a point where we defeat the encounter without draining a single drop of HP simply by breaking their will or causing a total psychological collapse?
Wow. So the pacifist run becomes the psychological warfare run. That's a wild thought. You just talk the boss into quitting, or you stare him down until he retreats.
It's the logical next step of reactive design. If the boss has a mind, the ultimate victory is defeating that mind, not just the body.
Well, on that note, I am going to go rethink how I treat the training dummies in my games. They might be judging me. They might be getting confident. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
A pleasure, as always.
And to you listening, next time you see Amina, don't get mad. Just ask yourself, can I make it explode? See you next time.